It's the off season, ladies and gentlemen, and albeit we came to the off season a lot later than we normally do, we are still here and still excited about it. There have been a number of names kind of floating around. We're going to get into a little roster in a little bit, but there's a name that's been tagged to us, or we have kind of opened up the conversation. I don't know how many people have actually said, he could come to Washington. Myles Garrett. He requested a trade out of Cleveland amid all the stuff they have going on. Should Washington go after him, Will?
Yes. And he got asked the question today, hey, you going to go to the Commanders? And he said, we'd be pretty good, wouldn't we?
Come on.
And he's like, well, there's a couple of – he goes, they could use a defensive end. He's like, as can a bunch of other teams. So that's when his agent was like, yo, what are you saying? Right there. Yes, I think you absolutely have to make a call to Cleveland and say, okay, so what are you looking for a Myles Garrett? Not just because of his sack production, but I think he would be just a huge play for us in general. We have to improve our edge. We had a problem with our run game, and Garrett could be someone that solidifies that edge and takes some of the pressure off of the linebackers to make plays in the run fits. And so, yeah, I think you do have to look at him. Plus the sack factor, the fact that he can get double-digit sacks every single year. He can make the offense force to chip with the tight end or running back, which means you take some of the pressure off the defense. And how many people do they have to cover when you got someone like that? And if you look at what would we be now? We have to find out what we're going to be giving up, but our first round pick is 29. If you get a guy like Myles Garrett, chances are next year we're going to make the playoffs too. And so we could be picking 25th and beyond. Like we're not sending them a top 5 pick anymore, And so that's going to diminish the value of what we can offer. But heck yeah, I think you look into this really strong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this even more than any of those splash moves that we were talking about from last year. You said it right there. I mean, one of our number one problems has been rush defense. Having a guy like Myles Garrett on that defense, like you said, it sets the edge, but it also it gives us a veteran and a dominant player on one of the 3 facets of our defense, which is that D line. Again, we don't know what we're going to have to give up. You and I have talked off about maybe is Jonathan Allen what we're going to need to, keep moving. We don't know about some of these guys' contracts, but if you were to put a piece like that on that D-line, then we were potentially able to re-sign a Bobby Wagner and have that in the linebacker. Then Lattimore in the secondary. Now you have 3 cornerstone pieces on that defense, which will give you, honestly, I think to your point, now those offenses have to think, okay, not how we're going to attack them. How are we going to stop this guy?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to sit here? We got to focus on this guy. And now if Garrett's over here shutting this side down, now Wagner can roam a little bit. Now, all of a sudden, you got this quarterback under duress. Lattimore is picking it up on the back end, or your boy Quan Martin, or some of those cats. You know what I mean? So it makes everybody's job easier. And you know me, I'm one of those that's like, let's save the money. Let's start build through the draft. Let's kind of build it up like that. Let's make the move. Let's put down the money. Let's add whatever he needs. We know the kind of team we have. If we can get this guy in, and the fact that he's even having this conversation, let's go back a year and a half ago, Will.
Yes.
Would we even consider Myles Garrett somebody that wants to come? No. And the fact that we have that he's even joking kind of about potentially coming to Washington, I think that shows how far we've come. But number 2, we're a competitor. We're a contender now, and people are starting to notice that and realize that. I say make the move, man. I say bite the bullet, go get this guy, and let's work around that, because what that does also is, just like with Lattimore, it kind of pulls back on if I need to definitely go for an edge in the draft or in free agency. I get that guy. Now that position for me is set. I can sit here and get a guy in the 4th, 5th, 6th round and work him up into this, and then we can do it. So that does so much for the team. And I know the price tag will be high, but it is so worth it.
It would be. And it would be worth multiple first round picks, even if it's this year's and next year's, because just like you said, you're not going to get a Myles Garrett picking at 29. You may get a George Karlaftis or a Ryan Kerrigan type player who's going to be a very solid player for you and a good player, but you're not going to get Myles Garrett is a Hall of Fame worthy player right now.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's what he was tracking. Like, you're not going to get that at 29. So you got to weigh some of that. And next year you wouldn't get the same, so it really could be worth it. And to what your point is, it would also allow you then to start focusing other areas of the draft in cheaper ways. Like, say we have to give up 2 firsts and Deron Payne. That will allow you to say, okay, to Jonathan Allen, if you're going to stick around, we're either cutting you, or we need to do an extension that lowers your cap, or we're drafting another D tackle with a 2nd round pick or our 3rd round pick. Infusing some additional talent to help that defensive line that doesn't cost as much. The other thing is, now there's a lot of speculation that either this is a contract ploy or whoever gets him is going to need to re-sign him, because I think he only has about 2 years left on his current deal.
Yeah.
But his cap is maybe like less than 25 a year, which is what we'd be paying Jonathan Allen. So we already have kind of allocated spots to absorb something like that. So it's not $40 million that you're bringing on, and he just takes up, 2/3 of our offseason cap immediately. So there's a lot of positives to this, where like, hey, this, like, the juice may be worth the squeeze on this one.
Yeah. And I'm here for it, man. I'm looking forward to potentially having that conversation and if not, having to visit and see where he fits, seeing where he fits in this defense, seeing where he fits in the scheme. What are we really talking about? Getting Myles Garrett potentially? Like, this is where we are now, Will. Like, this, if off seasons have been fun when we were just speculating about getting mid-range guys, think about this. If this is where we're starting now, obviously, like you said, getting him, we'd have to start figuring out some things with the money and everything, but it would be so well worth it to get a guy like this. And I mean, we're favorites. If we get a guy like a Myles Garrett, top 2 or 3 teams in the NFC, we're favorites by far to go to the Super Bowl. And I hate doing that. I hate those people that are like, every year Super Bowl. But when you start to get these pieces together and align them, and think about the little bit, we're going to talk about roster review in a little bit, but think about some of the little spots that, had we had a dominant force at that spot, this season could be completely different. Not completely different. We're only 1 game away, but still, that aids that team. You look at an Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions. We were able to beat them, but if they had a healthy Aiden Hutchinson in that game, who knows what would have happened? I think he had 8 or 9 sacks, and he only played 6 games or something like that. Yeah. Right.
Insanity.
So exactly. So we've seen throughout history, having that dominant edge could completely wreak havoc. And we look at even the Eagles. They didn't have, they blitzed from time to time. They didn't have to blitz because the front 4 was getting it done. We know the other pieces of that front 4 and what they were able to do without a dominant edge. Imagine putting Myles Garrett on there and having him run with those guys. Yeah, it would honestly just be something that I'm super giddy about. So I'm excited to see